Choosing progress over perfection is the turning point where life quietly begins to shift in your favor. Most people wait for the right mood, the right timing, or the right surge of motivation before they start anything meaningful. They tell themselves they'll begin tomorrow, or next week, or when life feels less chaotic, but that perfect moment never arrives. And so they stay stuck in the same patterns, convincing themselves that the problem is lack of motivation, when the real issue is the weight they've placed on perfection. When we expect perfection, we delay action, and when we delay action, we delay growth. The truth is simple: progress, even if it's messy, imperfect, and small, is the habit that changes everything. Progress is quiet. It doesn't shout for attention. It doesn't demand applause. It doesn't need recognition. It just needs to begin. Think about how most great transformations happen slowly at first, almost invisible to the eye. But each step compounds, each choice builds upon the last, and before you even realize it, you've created a path where there used to be hesitation. That is the power of choosing progress. It doesn't overwhelm you. It doesn't ask you to become someone you're not. It simply asks you to move, even if it's just 1 inch forward. The problem with perfection is that it tricks us into believing all steps must be big steps. It demands the grand gesture, the dramatic change, the flawless execution. But the people who transform their lives aren't the ones who start big. They're the ones who start consistently. They're the ones who understand that one small, imperfect action done today is infinitely more powerful than the perfect plan that never leaves your mind. They understand that waiting for everything to be exactly right is simply another way of staying exactly where they are. Progress means showing up even when your energy is low. It means beginning even when you're uncertain. It means acting even when fear whispers that you're not ready. You don't need permission to begin. You don't need a blueprint for the next 10 years. You just need a single moment of courage today, and that courage grows. There is something remarkable that happens when you choose progress over perfection. Your identity starts to shift. You stop seeing yourself as someone who hesitates and start seeing yourself as someone who moves, someone who tries, someone who builds. Every small action becomes evidence of who you are becoming. You begin to trust yourself more. You begin to rely on yourself more. And the habit of progress becomes the engine that drives confidence, resilience, and growth in every corner of your life. Consider how children learn. They don't wait for the perfect moment to take their first step. They don't analyze the risks. They don't criticize themselves for stumbling. They take one shaky step, then another. They fall, they get up. And eventually they walk, then they run. Their power comes from trying without the weight of perfection. Somewhere along the way, adults forget that. We begin measuring everything, judging everything, overthinking everything. And in doing so, we lose the natural brilliance of progress. Progress teaches you humility because you accept that you don't need to be perfect to begin. It teaches you discipline because you understand that consistency matters more than intensity. It teaches you resilience because you learn to move through setbacks instead of being defined by them. It teaches you patience because you realize that every meaningful change takes time. And most of all, it teaches you belief that who you want to become is built by what you choose to do today. Choosing progress doesn't mean lowering your standards. It means raising your willingness to act. It means recognizing that greatness is built in the mundane moments that most people overlook. It means understanding that becoming a better version of yourself isn't something you wait for. It's something you create, choice by choice, action by action. At the end of the day, progress is the habit that reshapes your life because it keeps you moving, and movement, no matter how small, is what breaks stagnation. It's what turns dreams into goals, and goals into realities. It's what separates those who talk about change from those who experience it. If you want to change your life overnight, don't wait for perfection. Don't wait for clarity. Don't wait for motivation. Choose progress. Show up today. Take the step you've been avoiding. Do the one small thing that moves you forward. and repeat it tomorrow. Because once progress becomes your default habit, transformation becomes inevitable. Defining your daily non-negotiable is one of the simplest yet most transformative decisions you can make. Most people go through their days reacting to messages, reacting to responsibilities, reacting to whatever demands their attention. And when life is lived in reaction, there's very little space left for intention. A day without intention becomes a day surrendered to chance. A day with intention becomes a day you shape, and nothing creates more intention than choosing one habit, just one, that you commit to no matter what. That single act becomes the anchor that stabilizes your identity, your mindset, and your growth. A non-negotiable is not a long list of tasks. It's not a complicated ritual. It's not something you do when you feel like it. A non-negotiable is a promise you make to yourself that holds even on the days you are tired, overwhelmed, distracted, or uncertain. It is the one action you refuse to break because it represents something bigger than the action itself. It represents who you are becoming. When you choose a daily non-negotiable, you declare that your life is worth structuring, your time is worth protecting, and your future is worth investing in. Many people struggle with discipline because they try to change too much at once. They create long lists of habits they want to adopt, and then feel defeated when they cannot maintain them all. But transformation rarely comes from doing everything. It comes from doing one thing every single day. The simplicity of one non-negotiable is what makes it powerful. It's easy enough to begin, it's small enough to maintain, and it's meaningful enough to shift the direction of your life. The magic is not in the habit itself. The magic is in the consistency. You might choose something like reading 10 pages, journaling for 5 minutes, stretching for a few moments, practicing gratitude, or focusing on a skill that matters to you. The habit could be simple, almost too simple, but what matters is that this is the habit you refuse to abandon. This is the habit that happens whether you're busy or free, inspired or exhausted, motivated or drained. This is the habit that teaches your mind, I follow through, I do what I say I will do. That message changes everything. When you follow through on your non-negotiable, you build a quiet kind of confidence, one not dependent on results, but on identity. You stop waiting for life to feel easy before you act. You stop relying on motivation to carry you. You begin to rely on yourself, and once you learn to rely on yourself, discipline becomes less of a struggle and more of a natural expression of who you are. Most people underestimate the compounding effect of one consistent habit. They believe it has to be grand to be meaningful. But small actions performed daily don't stay small. They stack, they multiply, they seep into other parts of your life. When you keep one promise to yourself, you become more likely to keep others. When one corner of your life becomes organized, clarity spreads to the others. When you create a single source of stability, your mind becomes calmer, your decisions become sharper, and your direction becomes clearer. Defining a non-negotiable also forces you to get honest about what truly matters, not what sounds impressive. Not what other people expect, not what looks productive, but what genuinely nourishes you, what strengthens you. What aligns with your future? Choosing a daily non-negotiable is an exercise in self-awareness. It asks you to listen to your goals, your values, and your intentions, and select one action that brings you closer to them every day. And yes, some days you'll want to skip it, some days you'll convince yourself it doesn't matter, some days you'll wonder if it's even making a difference. But that's exactly why it is a non-negotiable. The decision has already been made, the debate is removed. The emotion is removed, all that remains is the action, and when you repeat an action long enough, it becomes part of your identity. Identity is the real transformation. The habit is just the doorway. Think of athletes, leaders, innovators, people who live with extraordinary consistency. They don't rely on feeling, they rely on structure. They rely on the agreements they've made with themselves. These agreements, these non-negotiables, are the reason they never drift too far off course. Their days may bring chaos, but their foundation remains strong. And the strength of the foundation is exactly what allows them to climb higher. Your daily non-negotiable becomes your foundation. It becomes the one steady thing in a world that constantly changes. And the beauty is, once you choose it, your day begins to revolve around intention instead of reaction. You start your morning knowing exactly who you need to be. You end your evening knowing you remain true to yourself. Discipline feels less like a battle and more like alignment. What makes this habit so powerful is that it removes the illusion that change is complicated. It isn't. Change is consistent repetition of what matters. Change is choosing one thing and giving it meaning. Change is proving to yourself day after day that you can be trusted, and when you trust yourself, you move more boldly. You pursue bigger goals, you take more courageous steps, you stop second, guessing your ability to follow through. With one non-negotiable, your life begins to shift, quietly at first, then undeniably, because the moment you commit to something every day, your identity evolves. You begin to embody the future you once only imagined. You stop waiting for transformation and start building it. And the habit you choose, no matter how small, becomes the catalyst that reshapes your life from the inside out. Shifting from motivation to commitment is one of the most liberating transitions a person can make. Motivation feels good, it feels energizing, it feels like the spark that will finally push you toward the life you want. But motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes like the weather, bright one moment, cloudy the next, gone without warning. Anyone who waits to feel motivated before they act is setting themselves up for inconsistency. They will start strong, stall quickly, and blame themselves for lacking discipline. But the truth is, they don't lack discipline, they lack a stable foundation. And that foundation is built through commitment, not motivation. Commitment is what carries you when your emotions refuse to cooperate. It's the decision to show up whether you feel inspired or not, whether life feels convenient or not, whether you woke up with energy or woke up with doubt. Commitment is not about how you feel, it's about what you've decided. When your actions depend on your emotions, your progress becomes unpredictable. When your actions depend on your commitment, your progress becomes inevitable. The reason so many people struggle to change their lives is because they expect motivation to do the heavy lifting. They expect it to wake them up early, to help them exercise, to drive them toward their goals, to make them patient, disciplined, and consistent. But motivation is not a driver, it's a visitor, and you cannot build a life around something that refuses to stay. Commitment, on the other hand, is steady, it's grounded, it's dependable, it doesn't excite you, it anchors you. It becomes the quiet force behind everything you accomplish. Commitment doesn't ask you to be perfect, it asks you to be present. It doesn't ask for intensity, it asks for consistency, and it doesn't ask whether you feel ready, it asks whether you're willing. What makes commitment so powerful is that it shifts your identity. When you rely on motivation, you become someone who tries. When you rely on commitment, you become someone who follows through. That shift may seem subtle, but it changes everything. Trying is optional, following through is not. Trying depends on the moment, following through depends on the decision. Trying leans on emotion, following through leans on purpose. Think about the days when motivation is nowhere to be found. Those are the days that shape your character. Those are the days when commitment matters most. Anyone can move forward when everything feels easy. But the people who master discipline are the ones who show up on the days that feel heavy. That is where confidence is built, not in the moments when you feel strong, but in the moments when you act despite feeling weak. When you act out of commitment, you start to prove something important to yourself. You are someone who can be counted on. That proof becomes the fuel for resilience. The more you follow through, the more you trust yourself. And the more you trust yourself, the more capable you become of taking on challenges that once intimidated you. There's a great misconception about discipline that it is a matter of willpower, but willpower fades just as quickly as motivation. Relying on willpower is like trying to run a marathon on a single burst of energy. Commitment is different. It doesn't exhaust you, it sustains you. It creates routines, boundaries, and systems that make action almost automatic. Over time, commitment turns effort into habit. And once something becomes a habit, it no longer requires a battle. It becomes part of who you are. This is why people who achieve meaningful change don't ask themselves, "Do I feel like doing this today?" They ask themselves, "What did I promise myself I would do today?" That one question anchors them. It eliminates debate. It eliminates negotiation. It eliminates the emotional bargaining that kills progress. When commitment leads, emotion follows, not the other way around. The shift from motivation to commitment also brings clarity. When you are motivated, everything feels urgent. You want to change 10 things at once. You want big results quickly, but commitment teaches patience. It teaches that real change takes time, that consistency is more important than intensity, that small steps taken daily beat big steps taken occasionally. Commitment turns your focus from what feels exciting to what actually works. Over time, commitment creates a rhythm, a reliable pattern that supports you even when life becomes chaotic. It reduces overwhelm because you've already decided what matters. It reduces stress because you no longer depend on unstable emotions. It reduces self-doubt because every day you prove to yourself that you can follow through, and the more you follow through, the more your identity evolves. Eventually, you become someone who doesn't wait for the perfect moment, someone who doesn't rely on emotional highs, someone who moves forward with intention rather than impulse. You become someone grounded, someone steady, someone consistent, the kind of person who builds momentum and keeps it, the kind of person who succeeds not because they were always motivated, but because they were always committed. In the end, motivation may start the journey, but commitment finishes it. Motivation may open the door, but commitment keeps it open long enough for you to walk through it. Motivation is a spark, commitment is the fire, and once you choose to live from commitment instead of emotion, you unlock a level of discipline that most people never experience. This shift is quiet, it's internal, but it changes everything. Your habits, your identity, and your life. Creating a system that supports your habit is the difference between relying on willpower and designing an environment where success becomes the default rather than the exception. Most people assume discipline is about strength, pushing harder, trying more, fighting urges, resisting distractions. But discipline isn't really about strength, it's about structure. It's about crafting a world around you that nudges you toward the behaviors you want instead of pulling you back into the ones you're trying to leave behind. When your environment is aligned with your goals, you don't have to rely on bursts of motivation. You don't have to constantly battle temptations. You simply flow in the direction you've intentionally set for your life. Every habit, good or bad, lives inside a system. A system is the collection of cues, routines, surroundings, and defaults that shape how you act. If the system is chaotic, your habits will be inconsistent. If the system is intentional, your habits will be reliable. Most people blame themselves for failing, when in reality, they were working against an environment designed to make them fail. They think they lack discipline, when the truth is they lack a structure that supports discipline. The life you want isn't built by trying harder. It's built by designing better systems. Think about the habits you're trying to develop. Maybe you want to read more, exercise consistently, or focus on personal growth. Now ask yourself, is your environment helping you or sabotaging you? If your books are hidden in a drawer, they won't get read. If your workout clothes are buried at the back of your closet, you won't exercise. If your phone is within reach during your most important work, you won't focus. People often assume these obstacles are harmless, but small sources of friction can derail even the strongest intention. When you create a system, you remove friction. You set things up so that the right action becomes the easy action. You prepare your environment so that your habits feel natural rather than forced. This is how behavior becomes automatic when the world around you points you in the right direction. A powerful system begins with clarity. You must know what matters. Not everything deserves a place in your routine. Not every task deserves your energy. Systems thrive when priorities are defined. When you decide what truly belongs in your life, you naturally begin shaping your surroundings to reflect that decision. You stop cluttering your environment with things that drain you. You start surrounding yourself with things that empower you. For example, if your goal is to become someone who learns every day, your system might include a designated reading space, your book placed where you see it every morning, and a rule like read pages before touching your phone. If your goal is to exercise regularly, your system might include preparing your workout clothes the night before, choosing a specific time that never changes, or working out at the same location so your mind associates that place with movement. The system does half the work for you, you simply step into it. The beauty of systems is that they make habits less emotional. When you rely on emotion, you debate with yourself endlessly. Should I do it now? Should I skip today? Do I feel like it? Systems eliminate that internal negotiation. You've already decided what the day will look like. You've already built the conditions that support the behavior. You just follow what's been set up. People often misunderstand discipline as something rigid or harsh. But systems create freedom, not restriction. When your environment supports your goals, you gain mental freedom because you no longer exhaust yourself with decision fatigue. You gain emotional freedom because you no longer feel guilty for inconsistency. You gain personal freedom because the things that matter to you happen automatically. The structure doesn't confine you, it liberates you. A strong system also prepares you for the days when everything feels off. Life is unpredictable, stressful days come, bad moods come, unexpected problems come. When these moments hit, motivation disappears. But systems remain. They hold you steady when your emotions don't. They guide you forward when your inspiration runs dry. They become the backbone of your consistency. Over time, your system becomes part of your identity. You stop forcing yourself into discipline and start seeing yourself as someone who naturally lives with intention. Your environment becomes a reflection of your future self, not your past self, and that shift is powerful. When your surroundings align with the person you want to become, your actions follow effortlessly. Every extraordinary performer, every elite athlete, every innovative thinker, every highly disciplined individual, none of them rely on motivation alone. They rely on systems, they rely on routines, they rely on structures that make excellence predictable rather than accidental. Their success is not a matter of willpower, it's a matter of design. You can create that same level of structure for yourself. And it doesn't need to be complicated. Start small, choose one habit you want to solidify, then ask, how can I make this easier to do? How can I make it harder not to do? Rearrange your environment, simplify your process, remove distractions, add cues, lower friction, increase clarity. And watch how the habit strengthens without the constant struggle. Systems don't just support your habits, they shape your future. They quietly guide you toward the person you want to become by aligning your surroundings with your intentions. When you build a system that supports your life, discipline stops being a challenge and becomes a natural outcome of the environment you've created. And once your environment works for you instead of against you, every goal becomes more attainable, every routine becomes more stable, and every step forward becomes easier than the last. Aligning a habit with your future self is one of the most powerful ways to create lasting change because it turns every action you take today into a message about who you are becoming. Most people think habits are about the present, doing something now to get a result later. But the truth is, habits are more about identity than outcomes. They shape the story you tell yourself about who you are and who you are capable of becoming. When you choose a habit that aligns with your future self, you're not just performing a task, you're rehearsing the life you want to live. Imagine the version of you 5 years from now, or even 1 year from now. The version who is stronger, calmer, wiser, more disciplined, more focused, more grounded. The version of you that you admire, the one you'd be proud to meet. That version didn't appear accidentally. They were built, constructed, crafted day by day through decisions that reflected the identity they were growing into. When you align your habits with that future version of yourself, you begin to bridge the gap between who you are and who you want to be. The challenge most people face is that they choose habits based on their current emotions rather than their future vision. They act from the limitations of the present rather than the possibilities of the future. They say things like, "I'm not a morning person," or "I'm not disciplined," or "I've never been consistent." And then they choose habits that reinforce those beliefs. But identity is not fixed, it's malleable. It evolves with every action you take. You have the power to shape it deliberately instead of letting it drift unintentionally. The future self is not a fantasy, it's a blueprint. And a blueprint becomes real the moment you start building from it. One of the simplest ways to align a habit with your future self is to ask a question that is both grounding and clarifying. What would the future me do right now, and not the overwhelmed you? Not the tired you, not the doubting you, the future you, the one who has already succeeded. Their answer is the compass. Their behavior becomes the standard, and your daily habit becomes the bridge. When you make decisions from that place, everything changes. Your choices become cleaner, sharper, more intentional. You stop choosing what feels good now and start choosing what feels right for your growth. The habits aligned with your future self won't always be the easiest ones, but they will always be the most meaningful. They will stretch you just enough to grow without overwhelming you. The beautiful thing about aligning your habit with your future self is that it creates a powerful emotional connection. It turns discipline into something deeply personal. You're no longer just checking off tasks, you're becoming someone. You're shaping your identity, you're honoring the potential within you. Every time you follow through on the habit, you're taking a step toward the life you envision. And every time you abandon it, you take a step away from that life. That awareness creates purpose behind the habit, and purpose is the strongest fuel for consistency. This approach also helps you avoid the trap of short-term thinking. When you align habits with your future self, you stop looking for instant gratification and start valuing long-term fulfillment. You understand that slow progress is still progress, that small victories accumulate, that every repetition is a vote toward becoming the person you aspire to be. And because the habit is tied to who you want to become, you become far less likely to abandon it when it feels inconvenient. There is a subtle but profound shift that happens when your habits reflect your future self. Your mindset transforms. You begin to think like the person you want to become. You begin to act like them. You begin to feel like them. You gradually step into their shoes until one day, you realize you're no longer trying to become that person. You are that person. The habit didn't just change your routine, it changed your identity. Think about any great leader, athlete, artist, or innovator. They didn't rise to excellence because they forced themselves into discipline. They rose because they aligned their daily actions with the version of themselves they were striving to become. They lived in the future before the future arrived. They acted as though they were already capable, already focused, already disciplined. And eventually, that vision became reality. Your habits work the same way. They send a signal. Every time you practice the habit, you reinforce the identity you are growing into. Every time you complete the habit, you build trust in yourself. You create proof, real, tangible proof, that you are capable of becoming the future self you imagine. And this is where real transformation happens. When your identity shifts, your decisions shift. When your decisions shift, your habits shift. And when your habits shift, your life shifts. It all begins with the willingness to choose a habit that aligns with your future self rather than your current comfort. The most meaningful habits are not the ones that impress other people, they are the ones that reshape how you see yourself. They are the ones that give you a reason to try again tomorrow. They are the ones that pull you forward when the present feels heavy. They are the ones that whisper you are capable of more than you think. When you align your habits with your future self, you stop chasing change and start embodying it. You stop hoping for transformation and start living it. The future you want is already waiting. The question is whether you are willing to practice being that person today.